we're talking about, I've tried to put them in these different rings. I mean, the removal of Brad Karp from running Paul Weiss is about this ring of contacts. The removal of Peter, I think his name is Attia from CBS, is about someone who had horrific content in an exchange, but isn't accused of engaging in the trafficking. This ring is getting a lot of exposure, and she really delves deep into this ring of enablers. I think the vital circle of the men who may have participated in child rape and sex trafficking remains more opaque. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's probably true. It is highly unlikely that, for example, the FBI or even local police departments that got wind of this in some of the cities where Jeffrey Epstein lived would let those accusations occur without taking some sort of follow-up action. And that's really what makes the missing documents purportedly about President Trump so interesting. It's not a question of just one document and a single accusation that was chased down and sort of delved into. We know there's 4 documents missing. It is incredibly rare for an FBI investigator to have to go back to an interview subject, not just 1 extra time or 2 extra time, but 3 extra times to develop more information. It suggests that there is more to that universe of inquiry than what we know right now. Either the FBI developed something that could bolster the purported victim's testimony, or maybe they developed something that could undermine its credibility. But either way, it wasn't the sort of thing that was apparently resolved quickly or easily.
The 4 interviews happened in 2019 while Donald Trump was president. It seems unfathomable now. I mean, how can you just tell me how that happened, or is that normal? I mean, we now are sort of colored by what we view as Trump's heavy hands on top of the FBI reaching into it. Would it have just been normal for the FBI to interview a potential child victim of sexual assault and physical assault 4 times? Or that still isn't normal?
It's really fact determinative. It's hard to say without knowing what's in those 302s, which are what we call the documentary records of an interview. You know, I'll say this. It occurred in 2019. William Barr was the Attorney General. He was certainly a Trump partisan. The way he handled the Mueller report, for example, was inexcusably partisan. But he was also, at some level, an institutionalist who cared about the integrity and independence of the Department of Justice. Todd Blanche left a storied law firm to create his own firm for the sole purposes of representing Donald Trump. He now has taken that mindset to the Department of Justice, where him and Pam Bondi treat the RFK building as essentially a sitting room or satellite office of the White House. So Barr, at the end of the day, would have allowed those inquiries to go forward. I think Blanche and Bondi, at the end of the day, are more the sort of people who would search for a way to cover them up.
Would he have even known about it? I mean, could something happen in the FBI field office without the sitting attorney general knowing?
There are, and I'm going to get away from the specifics because I'm not quite sure how much is public now, but there are safeguards where if you are interviewing somebody at the level of the president or a cabinet secretary or a member of the Gang of 8 in Congress, it is inconceivable that senior FBI and DOJ management would not be made aware of the activity.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I asked Tara Palmieri because there is a chunk in Jeffrey Berman's book, his own memoir, his own telling, where he makes clear that there were aspects of the Epstein case that he kept from Maine DOJ, which was run by Bill Barr and Rod Rosenstein and their deputies. What is the, again, I hate asking about normal, but I do believe that someday things will be normal again. What would the normal way to pursue the truth and the facts around this be?
I just don't really trust that the FBI or the Department of Justice have ever taken this case seriously. Just going back to 1996 when Maria Farmer put in a call to the FBI talking about the fact that her and her sister, who was 16 at the time, were literally moved into another state, New Mexico. Her sister was fondled and she was touched inappropriately in a bed by Ghislaine Maxwell, and the FBI did nothing with that. So are we really supposed to believe that they take all of these tips seriously? I mean, that's the story of Annie Farmer, which was the key story, a key testimony in the case to indict and convict Ghislaine Maxwell. Okay, they waited decades for that. And then you go to 2008 and you look at the fact that the federal that the prosecutor Marie Villafana put forward 60 of trafficking, and they were all dropped, all of them. And he went back to the state level and got one count of soliciting a minor for prostitution. I don't understand how we can just accept, when we have 2.5 million documents in the ether, and we don't know why we don't have them, that we are just supposed to accept the Department of Justice has always done the right thing, that they have always been following up on all these tips and making sure that all of these girls who were trafficked, that none of that, they were never trafficked to anyone outside of Jeffrey Epstein, despite their own accounts.
I mean, I think that brings us to, I mean, I'll let you respond to that if you want to.
No, I mean, I think we have to be cautious about talking about the Department of Justice and the FBI as if they were monolithic entities. There are, I think, 90 some, if not over 100 U.S. attorneys' offices throughout the country. There are 56 FBI field offices. What agents and prosecutors at the line level pursue doggedly, of course, are sometimes going to get swept away by either inept or malevolent management. We've both worked in government. We know that that is tragically and horrifically something that sometimes happens. I am not quite as ready as Tara is to paint with that particular brush the entire institution. But I'm also not going to deny that this case, like many sexual abuse cases, I'm thinking particularly of Larry Nassar, was handled horrendously by the Department of Justice and the FBI. I think we just need to be careful about who we're levying the responsibility for that malfeasance against.
Yeah. I guess, Ali, what I'm wondering is, you know, the January 6th Select Committee was an example, again, from the outside, of a congressional committee with public support as the wind at its back, seeming to, from the outside, go further than the Department of Justice. Are the Democrats on the committee trying to model any of their investigative work and investigative conduct after that? And do they believe they can now make a case, again, with the public support as wind at their backs, that if Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton are being deposed, why not Donald Trump and anyone around him?
They're definitely trying to make that case. But here's what I think about the January 6th Select Committee a lot, because it was such a rare moment in Congress of not just having public opinion at their back, but of having Republicans and Democrats actually working toward the same goal on that committee. And that's important because, again, you need to have the majority in order to be able to enact the moves that you're trying to make. And so, yes, it is a blueprint for a committee that was effective, that was doing more than the DOJ was doing at the time. Ultimately, we know that there was a back and forth when the January 6th Select Committee was writing its final report. The DOJ behind the scenes was trying to say, OK, can you turn over all your transcripts, all your evidence, all the information that you've gotten? There was a push and pull for a few weeks and months there. But ultimately, the committee did make public what they had. What's different about this committee is that the work that they are doing, and I've asked several Democratic lawmakers, what's your goal here? Is it, as you talk to the survivors, to try to give them enough to bring some kind of a civil suit? When you talk to Les Wexner and you finally get him on the record about a whole number of issues and you release the transcript and the video, what is that meant to do? If it doesn't spur something criminal in terms of a prosecution, does it give you enough to try to give these survivors another avenue for accountability? And I know that it all feels like too little anyway, and I think Tara is right that this has been slow. And of course, the arc of justice for women who have been treated in such a horrific manner is so slow and often bends towards justice too slowly. But I do think that for Democrats, they are thinking about how in the court of public opinion, in the near term, they can find ways to get accountability. They can find names to get names of men out there who participated in this. They can find ways in depositions that will be made public, including the one with Hillary Clinton today and Bill Clinton tomorrow, that they can find ways to ask questions that at least illuminate new avenues of investigation, even if they do not yet have gavel power, subpoena power, the ability to say, hey, we want to hear from Howard Lutnick. Hey, we want to hear from President Donald Trump. But I think this is where the politics carries alongside the investigation, as it always does. The fact that Democrats now can add this to their midterm message and say, through the lens of affordability and accountability, I think the two A's that govern the 2020, what year are we in, 2026 process, that is the way that they are going to be able to make that case. If you want more accountability, if you want these committees to actually act in nonpartisan favor, put us in the majority in the House, and we will try to get closer to doing that. I mean, Congress is an imperfect body, but I think that's the way that I'm thinking about it, through the lens that you're using of the J6 committee, how it's different, how it's the same, and how it might mirror what this committee ultimately does.